Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast between Beneath Your Skin. I just changed the name of our podcast.
You made it
This
sound a
is
little bit
Gaia.
more sensual there, between our skin. Ooh.
Woohoo! This is Gaia, changing names to podcast because obviously I can't remember the name of my own podcast, but hey, that's me. And going crazy. Yeah, still going crazy. Hello, my dear. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Got a little bit of a cough, so I do apologise, people, if there's a bit of a cough in this episode. Not COVID. It's not COVID. It's just I work in a school, and it's the winter term, so everything goes through. So this is just literally cold. Been tested. It's just a cold.
Today, we are going to talk about the movie called Child Plays 2. Well, 2 years after the first movie, this sequel came out. Is probably a little bit more gruesome than the first one. There are parts that are a little bit creepier. Chucky is a lot more psycho than in the first movie. And Brad Dourif is still doing an amazing job giving his voice to Chucky. There is an amazing soundtrack, and the beginning of the movie is beautifully enlightened by the music, the creepy music going on while we see the doll being reconstructed. And the more we watch the scene, the longer the scene is, the more it looks like we are actually watching a coroner doing an autopsy. And we realize how damn creepy Chucky's mouth is.
Yes.
It looks like it's a human mouth in the face of a doll. And you are like, wait a moment, but the teeth and the gums, they look real, they look human, and it's very creepy. I can't tell you, Zoe. I was like, ooh, okay. I am a little bit picky because everything related to mouth and teeth, it's a hard limit for me because I have a dental condition, so I really don't like when
Hyper
we are
realistic close up to evil doll teeth.
yes. And my teeth are very small because I never changed them. So basically, they look like baby teeth, but they have real roots. So, yeah, I don't like when people come anywhere near my mouth. And that scene was like, whoa, why is the mouth of a child on a doll? Yeah, it was very creepy. But there is also something lacking in this movie. There is something that was there in the first movie and isn't here. It's like in every sequel. It's very rare for a sequel to be as good as the original movie, and yeah, you can feel it here. There are some scenes I really like, and I like, for example, how the first scene in Andy's new house was shooted, how it was filmed, with the camera basically on the ground, watching at Andy from below, so that Andy is represented and given to us being small in this huge house, lost and alone. This is how you show how a character is feeling without the need of telling us that Andy is going through a very hard moment of his life. And that's perfect. I like that. And another scene I really like is when they run in the factory and it's like they are trapped in a maze formed by all the good guys' dolls. That was very well realized. But yes, there is something lacking. There is something that is not as strong as in the first movie.
Yes, I was trying to put my finger on it, and I was trying to work out if it was the pacing or the editing, or like when it's good, it was really good. But I found myself a little bit drifting in this one compared to the first one that had my attention. And it's like it's still got a short running time. It's like 1 hour 25, yet it somehow felt longer than the first movie. And it's really weird, and especially since the first movie, Chucky doesn't start doing anything until like a bit into the film. This one, he's off the bat. Every time Chucky's on screen, it is a delight. Brad Dourif's voice work, his expressions, like the acting, his one-liners, his attitude, his mental state, absolutely brilliant. And oh my god, the puppetry and the animatronics on this are amazing. It's just an absolute joy to watch the practical effects. And as the film goes on, like I loved the ending of the first one and seeing all the melted flesh and then head moving and just how realistic and awesome it was. And in this one, they had the mutated doll wax thing and it was all gross. And again, like wow, this puppetry, this imagery is phenomenal, and the voice work is phenomenal, and Chucky's personality is just so like genuine. You get a joy but a freak out. You know, he's like, it's bad and murderous, but at the same time it's entertaining. It's wonderful. Andy being a bit more aged up was a bit like, okay, this is a bit better. He's less like sweet innocent little thing, but I don't think they use him as well in this. I don't know, there was something, they didn't really let him express that like he was scared of Chucky. They were like, he was scared of Chucky, they're telling him not to be, he kind of got over it, and then he was like, oh no, Chucky's coming to get me, and I'm like, that wasn't believable in that way.
And another thing that really wasn't believable was when he goes in the basement to face Chucky. That's
Yeah.
not something you do after you have been scarred for life by this doll. Your mom is actually going through psychiatric treatments because of this doll. You aren't at home because of this doll. You have lost a person you called aunt because of this doll. You are too young to go in the basement and face Chucky.
Even picked the doll up and started playing with it, let alone any. I was like, no.
It would have been more believable if Andy had been of the same age of his sister or his whatever we can call the girl.
Foster sister?
Foster sister, yeah,
Yeah.
I was lacking the word. But yeah, it's Andy is too young, and what happened, it was 2 years for us, but for him not that long, so no, it was too early, too soon.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's this Andy is not really believable, as you said.
No.
And there are some scenes that are useless. It feels like they were put there just to make the movie longer, like for example the sequence with the foster parents. Yeah, yeah. I like how they pointed out that there are some issues in this family. We pick up something important. Are those people foster parents because of the good of their heart, or just to appear good to the ever judging eye of society because they can't have children?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they should have taken Andy in. Like, I work with a lot of foster kids. There's a lot of foster kids in like my kind of school setting and the kind of work I do. And like you have to go through a lot to be able to become a foster parent. And you don't just be like, "Hey, this kid needs a home." Okay, you've got to know something about what you're taking in the background. I liked the fact that they gave it like a logical and believable what would happen next rather than they all lived happily after. I was like, how are they going to bring Chucky back? And I'm like, well, that's how you do it. Because if you completely reskin something that has a soul trapped in it and rebuild it, and I love the fact that he comes to life via the eyes, and obviously the expression, the eyes are the window to the soul. And it's like when they put the eyes in, then the power and the soul was transferred, was reawoken in Chucky's body. And I'm like, I'm believing this. I'm believing this is in the weird way of voodoo ritualistic, like soul transferation that the story has set up. This is how it would happen. And then they went on to say, like, okay, yeah, the company's in trouble because news got out about a killer doll. And I'm like, Yes, yes, it would. But then I was like, oh, so the mum's locked up and the kid's obviously looking for a foster. And I'm like, why did the police officer not stand by her? And it's like, oh no, deniability. And I'm like, well, then turns out that the police officer was a dick, wasn't he? Like, that's not very nice. I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that, like, oh, okay, so the mum's away. But I suppose, but there's a potential hope that, like, Andy will go for fostering and the mum will sort out like her issues and they can be reunited. But at the end of the movie, they're like, let's go home. Where's home? I don't know. And it's like, what about your mum, Andy? You've forgotten about your mum. I didn't particularly like the foster family. I think if you're going to take in kids you know have a tricky background and probably come with behavioural issues, you don't live China dolls out around the place. Like, you just don't. It's not what you do. The dad just didn't seem very much like he wanted the kids there. And it's like, well, that doesn't seem like the. You need to put 100% in when you take in children from difficult backgrounds, because you need to make sure that they're in an environment where they know they're safe and understood. And I really think if they're taking home a child that is having delusions that, from their point of view, is having delusions about a killer doll called Chucky, who's a good guy doll, then you damn well make sure that you don't leave one in his cupboard and go, oh, we've had so many kids, we forget which toys we've had. I'm like, you would remember the giant doll that is being paraded on the newspapers saying, oh, wow, family says doll kills people. Like, you'd be like, I think one of those killer dolls, yeah, let's just, like, it's just like, it's like you're making really bad parenting choices. You're not good people, and I don't feel sympathy for you. I feel like you're just doing this to seem like good people and to stop people saying, why aren't you having kids? It's like, that's not how you do it, because the kids will sense that and won't feel that familiar bond with you. I do like Kyle. I mean, I liked her 80s fashion sense, and I was like, I've got outfits like that. I remember these kind of outfits. And I do think she was a good, like sisterly influence on Andy, and the fact that she became like the final girl type, and the fact that like she was quite happy to like try and run Chucky over and then be like, quick, I'm going to help Andy. I'm like, you may come from a troubled past, but you recognise a kindred spirit in another like individual that's also got troubled past, and she like she looked out for him. So I liked her. There was not that what I loved was the mother like son relationship, and the mother was like, what's happening to my son? What's happening to my son? Okay, now I'm going to believe my son. Oh my goodness, yes, I believe my son. And the police officer's like, no, you're silly, no, you're silly, no, you're silly. Oh my god, yes. This was kind of like, no one believed him, no one believed him, then they died. And you're like, I get it. Like sometimes when you watch these kind of like genre of horror films, you want to see the body count and you want to see the people, when you watch the ones that have all the dickish teenagers and you're like, well, that dude's a dick. Want to see him get his comeuppance. There needed to be a little bit more believability around it rather than just like, that guy's a bit of a dick, now he's dead. That guy's a bit of a dick, now he's dead. And I'm like, the first one, there was story beats to why Chucky targeted certain people. And this one, it was just like, he felt like it. The end.
Yeah, I think Chucky was a little bit too psycho in this movie, because to be a serial killer, you have to plan carefully your killing. Otherwise, the police will have a very easy time catching you. He was a serial killer, so he wouldn't act because he was bored or because he was just on a rampage. Yeah, there was something. It was weaker. Come on, it was weaker. Let's say the truth. It was weaker than the original movie. They tried to make up for this weakness, giving us more blood and more body parts. But that's all. That's all. And sadly, it doesn't work because yes, I like the moment Chucky basically tears off his own hand because he got trapped, and then he put the knife inside his bones now because he's trapped inside the doll body. Yeah, that too, it wasn't very clear. We didn't know until Chucky realizes it that he was running out of time. He had a lot more time during the first movie. Here, it feels like it was rushed. because of course you couldn't let Chucky to possess Handy, and so you had to basically tell him, "Oh, too bad, you were too late." Yeah, but the audience were like, "Really? How did it happen?" Yeah, it was weaker.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I still think that Chucky himself, his scenes stole every scene. Brilliant, wonderful. Like, I do like the spike on it, and he's all like, "Yeah, now and I'm like, and it's like I do like some of the over the top deaths, but I wanted to see Chucky do more of it and have more one liners. It's like he didn't have any memorable one liners like he did in the first movie, which was a shame. There was no relationship between him and some of the people he was killing off. Like in the first one, when it was like the child psychologist that was like, got his brain fried, that was comeuppance. And you kind of like, but also like justifiable, like, well, that guy was trying to, like, brain, like, lobotomize a child. This one, there was a teacher that was a bit like, "I don't like naughty children." And I'm like, he's new. Clearly, the boy behind him flicked his ear. You listen to both. I think probably because I work in a school, I am a bit like, no, 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 no. No, you don't automatically do. That's not how you treat children. That's not how you get to the bottom of their behavioural issues. But yeah, so I did. I mean, so I was a bit like, that's just bad teaching, woman. But I think like Chucky should have spent more time calculating the best place to be to have targeted Andy, because like Chucky could have just, like, if he had just got Andy alone really like early, could have just like, but he kind of did a lot of like show and tell, like he went a bit OTT, but at the same time, I suppose it's a really hard balance to get right. That you want the over the top deaths that are part of like the franchise and the era it's made in, but you want them a little bit more believable about why those people who died, those people got, like, chosen as victims. But yeah, not as strong as the first one. But I do really love Chucky as a character.
That's for sure. And Brad Dourif, as I already said, did an amazing job. He's amazing.
Yeah,
The way he gives his voice to Chucky, the way he becomes Chucky, it's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
I mean, I still can't remember a single movie in which he plays the good guy, but playing the villain is amazing.
yeah,
Is absolutely amazing.
yeah. He
I
was.
think Chucky is up there for me. Is up there with Grima Wormthong and Peter de Vries. My God, it was so perfect. People, I know sci-fi is not what we talk about, but if you didn't yet and you want to get prepared for Villeneuve's new version of Dune, go watch David Lynch's version and you will see what I'm talking about when I say that Brad Dourif is an amazing twisted mentat. I'm fangirling about Brad Dourif.
You
Okay,
are
yeah,
allowed to. I mean, I'm still amazed, outstanded by the puppeteering team. I mean, I'm a big advocate that practical effects are better than CGI effects, and this proves it because the film may like be what 1990, but it looks perfect. You can only tell it's made then because of the fashion and some of the like the CGI lightning.
yes,
But Chucky himself, like, perfection in that puppeteering, practical effects, amazing.
is a lot better than Hannibal.
Yes, yes. But then Annabelle just ended up turning into a CGI demon that climbed around the ceiling.
Yeah,
And
true.
you're like, no. And Sabrina that just didn't do anything. It's like, come on, people, if you're gonna give us the creepy doll thing, then like, I mean, obviously, I still love Heidi. She's
Yeah,
up there with my favourite like demonic dolls because I just such a soft spot for that movie and the fact that whatever turned up right at the end of the movie that you saw for less than like, I don't know, 10 seconds, I was like, what the hell is that? That's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen and gone, and we will never know, and that stays with me. But the practical effects and the puppeteer work that go into the way Chucky moves, and it's like it's brought together with Brad Dourif's performance of the way he can he matches the delivery of his lines to those dolls' facial expression, and that's not easy to do because obviously he's in a studio recording it. He's not there on set, like he's so I don't know how they married the two together, but like a simple eyebrow raise from Chucky, and you feel the spite coming from him with the lines that like Brad Dourif is like saying. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
That's so true. Yes, it's weaker than the original movie, but it's still something you have to watch, people, just because of Brad Dourif and Chucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth it. And I feel like if the franchise just starts getting silly now, which I think with some of the titles coming up, it will do. I think at least it's going to be fun, silly. Like we've watched a lot of bad movies that are just bad. I think this is going to be that kind of bad trash that's like it's not going to win any awards and the critics are going to hate it, but I personally am probably going to enjoy it because I enjoy the character and the dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Absolutely same. So, if Zoe doesn't have anything else to say,
No, not today.
thank you for listening, people. And if you want to stop and say hi, we have a Facebook page, Beneath Your Skin. We have a Twitter account, at beneath underscore your. We have a Tumblr, Beneath Your Skin 2020. And you can listen on Spotify or Pinecast. Thank you for listening, and bye bye.
It's always a pleasure, Gaia. And even though the film was like weaker, we still enjoyed it. Chucky and Brad Dourif and things. There's a lot to love in it. Again, you can find me on Twitter as Let Zoe Spoil You if you ever want to say hi. But for now, byesy byes.